Welcome to Philly Coco Presents Side Project Spotlight, episode 104. This is a developer's journey into making cool stuff. I'm Kotaro.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Aaron.
And we are Philly Coco, a Philadelphia-based Cocoa Heads community focused on Apple development. That primarily, but not exclusively, means iOS, Mac, tvOS, watchOS, and visionOS development. Philly Coco's true desire is to take you higher on your own developer journey. Whew, all right.
Very nice.
It's back to me now. What's that?
Yeah, thankfully.
So...
And my voice is getting back to normal.
Yes.
It must have been horrible for people to listen to that last time. I tried to improve my voice. Like, I used the Riverside tooling and stuff for the first time. I never use it on my voice or, usually on our voices because we don't need it. But the original recording was way worse than you heard.
Wow, okay. So
my voice is still not 100% back, so.
And Arpit said he listened to it, so
it's good.
Good to us.
Yeah, our numbers are going up. So
the numbers going up. That's always good to see the line go up.
When we get to 3 digits, then we made it.
Okay, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
But maybe someday. Maybe another 6 years or whatever, 5 years.
Maybe we got lucky because as of this recording, our IRL meetup, which is going to happen at the Vanguard office in Philadelphia, has happened.
Remember, you're listening to this in the future from when we're recording.
In the future, yes.
Now is tomorrow, and the thing we're talking about that is tomorrow happened yesterday. Some kind of Spaceballs reference insert here.
Yes, but so what's happening now is okay. I want to run that joke, but I can't remember the whole line.
When you're listening to this, the IRL meetup already occurred.
Yes, and so for people who didn't know about the IRL meetup, we had quote unquote 3 talks. One from Azam Sharp about Swift navigation, and one by myself about liquid glass. Is it liquid glass? Excuse my French. Well, okay. It was much more about the implications of its existence. What does it tell about the modern UI UX trends? And Steve,
does anybody like it?
I mean,
I keep feeling like the more of the noise I hear about it online, people hating it. The people that I talk to around me, anecdotally, say, "Oh, it seems fine to me," and then move on with their lives. So I can't tell what is real and what is fake in that whole
thing. It's just the loud discourse online from 3 people.
Yeah, you can't take
maybe.
You can't take the online discourse of anything in tech totally seriously because there's too many incentives to have the radioactively hot takes about everything.
I mean, to be fair, I get why. Like, the explanation all makes sense to me. I just wonder...
I gotta say. It's the roughest on macOS.
Yeah. I just have to wonder, like, whether or not the target market is not us, and it's of a younger generation. And
I thought you were going to say it's the future classes product. So we have to live through this generation.
Since this already happened but didn't happen from our perspective, the event, we haven't heard the talk, even though we should have because this comes out after. So why don't do you want to talk about any particular points that you did already bring up?
I think it goes back to it goes back to some of the things that when you're a UX UI designer, you're always trying to get a sense of the intent of the original designer, in which case this is put Alan Dye threw Alan Dye under the bus, but I don't know if it was entirely him. But let's just assume that was the case. The head designer of Apple who had left to move on to Meta. But one of the interesting things about it is that because it's liquid glass, its metaphor was actually, it's almost like the final form of what started with Aqua, right? All the way back with Aqua and the whole, that whole line that I joked about like Steve Jobs saying it's lickable or whatever.
Yeah.
Did not apply to liquid glass. It applied to Aqua at the time. And Aqua, if you remember, had a lot of those metaphors baked in and pretty pronounced.
Looked like candy.
Yeah.
The idea, right? A lot of it looked like
right.
It was like
So you can lick it. It was that's the term.
gelatin and kind of. It was like it wasn't quite
Little
glass,
droplets,
but it was
or
droplets. It did resemble like candy, like something you'd want to lick if you were, I don't know, like reenacting that Willy Wonka scene from the Willy Wonka movie, the
I
original.
thought you were going to say the Tide Pods.
No, that's better. That's a better joke. We're gonna go with Aaron's joke. Like if you wanted to reenact the Tide Pods meme, which don't do that. Don't eat Tide Pods.
But it's kind of funny because like I was looking at some old iOS, macOS 9 wireframe, UI designs.
9? I remember 9. I used to support 9, man. 9 was...
Dude, 9 is...
I liked 9.
9 is amazing.
I liked the design of 9.
I mean, it was a very fast, efficient, tight operating system.
Okay,
it's hard to describe.
It took forever to start up on those ancient computers with the hard drives, but once
you gotta stop putting all those crazy extensions that always crash the machine.
I remember supporting these machines, and they must have loaded like a dozen or more extensions. I was always going in that bypass extension mode to try to fix things.
Sweet cooperative multi-thread, cooperative
little puzzle
threaded
pieces would load at the bottom of the startup screen, and then like every additional one was like another nail in your coffin.
Yeah,
you can see it,
but all the windows were.
Yeah,
now we're doing that all over again with AI tools.
Are we?
It's like throwing more tool context in your model and just keep making it slower and slower until it's unusable.
Oh yeah.
Every
time you want to do something, it's got to like load some model into memory.
Oh my goodness. It's actually kind of funny because this is a little off topic, but I was looking at some YouTube videos around Arch Linux and why people loved it so much. And I just looked at it and I was like, all it is just a bunch of windows of terminals everywhere. So
yes.
I think from a nerd perspective, yes, I get it. But holy
terminals
crap.
Are cool.
I mean, keyboards are cool again, so sure.
No. Voice to text is cool. I'll talk about that because we'll get to my part.
Okay. Well, anyway, getting back to the whole liquid glass thing, so in a way, I wouldn't necessarily refer it as the ultimate form or the final form of that original metaphor, but it certainly is a modern interpretation of that metaphor, right? And of course, if you're cynical, a direct response to sort of the sameness that is between, if you looked at an iPhone and if you looked at a Android, you need at least a quick second. If you didn't know the hardware, if you didn't see the hardware, you'd need at least a little quick second to be like, oh, which one is which, right?
Yeah.
They want it they want it to be very clear and very obvious. And what would be one way to do it? Burn your hardware to the ground.
Yeah, if you don't have the right GPU architecture, you're doomed with liquid glass.
Right.
I think it's, and since I haven't yet listened to the talk that already happened.
You mean my talk?
Yeah, your talk. I wonder if you brought up the idea that I've had that Apple's trying to create a really obvious, distinct layer for the necessary UI Chrome you need for an app, but allowing you to basically do whatever you want underneath of that. It's like they're trying to kind of get out of the way because I think, and maybe this is just me speculating here. Maybe they're not this far ahead thinking, but the future of UI and software is, as you said, Kotaro, more distributed, I think. So you're going to have it popping up in more places in your operating system and on devices, but also I think maybe even increasingly generated on demand for certain things. So if you have an app, I don't know, a fitness dashboard app, for instance, it's just throwing that out there, and you wanted to generate a graph or some kind of, I might call it
this fitness app.
I might call it Bento
because it's got a dashboard. Right.
Yeah. But if you wanted to, say, have some aspect of that dashboard be generated on demand, through some mechanism, then you can't be worrying about having really specific Chrome and stuff like you go back at the original Aqua days, you had the pinstripe backgrounds and stuff. It was very much your apps adopted this very distinct look. Where I feel like in Liquid Glass, I've seen a variety of apps they look distinctly different. They just have the same buttons on top. And it more or less, I think, works most of the time. Definitely some things work better than others underneath of it. But I feel like that's maybe part of their thinking, that they're just thinking long term, like the next decade, what do we need to do to provide the infrastructure for the apps of the future so we don't like seem like we're falling behind and dated. Or
I mean,
maybe
there's
just
that.
liked Glass. I don't know.
I mean, it's fair to say, like, Alan Dye might not necessarily be the guy to really think that far in the future in that regard.
Maybe he just liked Glass.
He very well might. I mean, they made, like, real-life replicas just so they can make sure that the shaders actually do a reasonable job reflecting the real-world metaphor. One of the funny things...
Cool effect.
It is very cool. It sort of breaks apart when you're putting light, you're pressing it, and like light starts coming out of nowhere from it, of the buttons.
Yeah, they toned that down, I noticed. They did tone that down in a point update. Because when I first got it, 26 installed, it was like I was in the Messages app, and I was like getting blind. It was like sunbursts in my eyes every time I tapped something on the screen. It was a little bit over the top.
Yeah, I mean, it's still there. It's like a focus highlight kind of thing. The interesting thing that did though is like it encouraged this gesture metaphor. So if you look at like the tab bar is a very clear example of like before you had to tap into each section of a tab bar, there was no drag mechanic. Now the drag mechanic is almost the highlight of that mechanic. It's always encouraging you to swipe versus and drag versus tap. You could still tap and it does still work. That got me start to think a little bit about what they're trying to sort of encourage, right? And then it dawned on me when you saw that we talked about the Safari. Maybe, I don't know if we talked about it in this pod, but how the Safari bar, right? Everyone hates that bar at the bottom, but that bar is there at the bottom to make it more easily accessible for your thumb. And you're like, okay, well, how do I switch tabs? Well, you switch tabs by dragging on the bar, right? And it's like, well, how do I get to, and normally to get to your tabs, like your grid view of tabs that you have, like your millions of tabs, you had to press like the ellipsis button. And let me see, press the ellipsis button, and then you have to open up all tabs, the all tabs button. So that's two taps, which is annoying, right? But if you know the secret gesture, which is basically drag from the tab bar, from the address bar at the bottom, drag up, you get that same mechanic.
I didn't know you could do it from that. I always just did it from the button, from the ellipses button.
Right.
Just dragged up.
Yeah.
But yeah, same thing. Once I got used to those gestures, I switched it back and left it in the default 26 mode. Like I had the alternative mode where it like had more of a substantial traditional bar at the bottom, but now I've gotten used to it. I like the fact that there's not so much Chrome on here. I think a lot of apps look better. I think it works really well for a web browser because you want the web page to come through.
But that's the thing, like before, the norm of good UX was all about exposing that up front. I think of this closer to like a Snapchat, TikTok sort of thing where it's almost like a word of mouth thing. Like somebody has to tell you, or you have to just learn it somehow of these gestures, right? You can still do it the old fashioned way. It'll be a little more painful. But if you know the gesture, then all of a sudden, like it all makes sense. But it's not revealed to you in the beginning. They don't explicitly tell you that. So it's almost like this like weird video game mentality of like, we're going to gently have a little light here implying that something's possible, but we're not going to, in this area, there might be treasure in that spot. We don't know. We're not going to tell you that one explicitly unless you go there, right? And then do something in that spot. It's kind of similar in that kind of like way of learning how to use the app. So I think that's the encouraged behavior. I don't think everybody got the note yet. And I don't think they ever really explicitly say that.
That's kind of an issue with Apple's updates. Like they're not always discoverable. Their UI changes. Like they're just really not. I don't know if that's intentional. They think there's just no better way of letting people know. I've seen like some tooltip type things pop up once in a while, or that little like message. There's like an app on your phone or something that's supposed to give you. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, geez, that's horrible. It's good, but
I feel like Apple is trying to thread the needle here, like be intuitive for most people, but then have these gestures available if you're exploring. Like you just kind of can stumble upon them. And as far as I can tell, you can't like accidentally do anything bad that would lead you to like. So if you're just fumbling around, you'll just discover these gestures, and it's not destructive. So it's just like a nice little surprise.
It's one of those things where it's almost born out of, when I discovered it, it was almost born out of frustration of like, how come this is like this way?
And then I was like, it was very frustrating when 26 launched.
Right. So it's almost like the Elden Ring of operating systems. Just put you
It's
through
like
hell.
Apple released the game on hard mode, and we were all expecting journalist mode.
Yeah. So that's kind of like, I mean, that's mostly sort of some of the key revelations, at least for me, about that OS. And as an app developer, one of the things about the Liquid UI, even when you transition from one view to another, the toolbar and the tab bar, the nav bar and the bottom nav bar, I guess for lack of a better word, changes and morphs as if it was a bunch of buttons that are just in the same place. And so your app layer, it can be frustrating for any brand to go, oh, this is Apple's UI slapped on top of my face, and I have really no control of the experience over Liquid Glass. Like I can't put a skin over Liquid Glass and say, all right, now my brand, this is my brand, right? So if you got,
but like this looks distinct. Yeah. I mean, that's like a distinct look, and there's no, you could do it. Like you have to be more subtle. Like, and the way I've been dealing with it is, there's a few places where I use a specific font, and there's certain colors, and and then there's like the structure, the kind of the overall layout of things. I think it just requires better taste, maybe, and it requires refinement to make these things, to make it work. Because you can't just be in your face. Like the old school way of doing this was like the nav bar. You just like put your brand color there, put your brand logo there, whatever, or maybe you make like a custom tab bar, and all that stuff is kind of not the best approach anymore.
Well, the challenge is like
do it, but
you can't put your brand. It can't be it's not the layer on top. It's still Apple's brand.
Right. It's the layer underneath.
Top. Yeah.
But that's why it's glass, because it's supposed to be unobtrusive. That's the idea. Not saying it's perfectly executed in this version.
Yes. But I mean, and I think one of the things I'll probably end on, and this is more like me thinking about it while I was on the train ride back home, was like, I'll probably make sure to add like, the other option you can have is not to put I forgot what the terminology is. Do not put the UI in the P list checkbox or whatever. You can just turn it off and not include it.
I have that turn.
And pray that and pray they do nothing. They revert everything on WWDC 26. So
I know. I just pray that they keep that checkbox like as an option for old apps like indefinitely, because I am not going to update. I don't want to update all the stuff anyway.
Yep. So that was my talk. Yeah.
It was a good talk.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I can't wait to see it, and I also loved it.
Yes. Oh, I just want to ask, this hypothetical dashboard app that you were talking about, this Bento
called Bento Fit in my mind.
How theoretically, what website would you give that as an app? Where would I hypothetically find this app?
I'm just checking to see if it still works. Bentofit.app. It's still working.
Okay, just checking.
Cloudflare has not had an outage today, so it's still working.
Good to know that hypothetically this app could be existing somehow.
I know. You should go check it out. Bentofit.app. Download it. It's our early version from September, but there'll be a new version and it'll be even better.
It'll be even better. So what did you talk about in this?
I will and already did talk about, depending on your perspective on time as a fourth dimension. I was trying to come up with a kind of to just talk about how I've been using specifically Codex CLI since I had access to it only a few scant weeks ago, and created a talk that's really beginner focused. It's really about, if you don't have any experience using these agentic tools, or like maybe you've just used some chat interfaces. Maybe you're in like an organization that you just got access to these tools and you're trying to figure out how to get them to kind of work well with you without going all the way down the rabbit hole. So like this is like baby steps into getting useful results from these agentic things. I found a workflow that I am continuing to iterate on and is working well. And I created this. I'm going to share this so that Aaron can see, because he may have, or he might miss the talk or did miss the talk. So what we're going to say, but it's the actual talk is called Spec Plan Ship, a gentle on-ramp to AI-assisted iOS development. And I went completely over the top with ChatGPT generated images for this, just to really lean into the...
It's burning my eyes right now.
Exactly.
Wow.
I have succeeded.
There is like purple glowing...
It's amazing.
Checklists and brains. Of course, you got to have the brain with like...
Oh, yeah.
Grid.
Most of these are just the first attempt at generating an image. I just took it. This is like... the sloppiest of AI slop images on these slides.
Oh,
as
man,
a
you just smeared my face with that slop.
Exactly. Well, I wanted to give you something interesting to look at, and also it's like a counterpoint to my actual point, is that by default these things, will generate sloppy crap. So you do have to put some effort into being a software engineer to get them to work right. So I kind of tried to break it down into a little acronym or a little 4-step sequence here called intent, interact, increment, and iterate, so you can remember. And so ChatGPT calls this the 4I workflow. I didn't come up with that. I just thought it was terrible, so let's use it as a slide. And so, but the 4 kind of areas of this is, my point is, you want to start with a concrete task with constraints. You want to have a clear idea of what you're doing. You want to talk in air quotes. You want to have a chat with the LM to create a spec. Then you want to use that spec, and that spec will have like more technical details in it. Down to what I do is use this particular reusable component that I already created that's over in this module and that kind of thing. But you go back and forth on this, and then you use the spec to create a plan, the implementation plan, which is basically like some constraints and stuff, and most importantly, a phased set of checklists. And at the end of each phase, a constraint is that the code has to still compile. And so I asked the LM to create basically a to-do list that doesn't break the app, and then you go through the phases. You can either do one phase at a time, or sometimes just let the thing go and do it, and then you do your normal kind of testing, whatever that involves with your app. I do a lot of manual testing right now as I'm finishing something up. So I have a QA list at the end that it gives me. And I go through the QA list. And then if it all works, I say, okay, we're done. We archive the plan. It links the specs and the plans together. It makes all the checkboxes off. It files it away. And then I git commit and move on to the next thing. I mean, I've looked at the code in between doing this, but I mean, it's been very reliable.
How long and deep do you actually look at the code?
Depends. I mean, that is a good point, because it depends on what it is. Like, I made a settings screen and I've looked at it, but I'm not like I haven't okay, I could have done that a little better, but it doesn't matter because it's a settings screen. It works and it's clean enough. In fact, it's been outputting like decently clean Swift code, not always perfect Swift code. Also, it still has a tendency to like use old APIs, and I help address that by having an MCP server to context 7, which is not part of this talk because that's more advanced, but it also tends to have too much state sometimes. But, the models are pretty good when you steer them. And then the most important thing is that I'm working in a code base that is highly developed. It's basically a complete app that was handwritten for the most part. So it's like it has lots of examples, and as you do this, your kind of specs and everything kind of link together, and then it just has more examples to go with, and so it outputs more what I want. But to move on in the talk here, talking about intent, what I'm really talking about is you want to have like my demo example, if it works, we have time, is add a little like disclosure group toggle to a card on a dashboard. That's a really simple one, but you would do something. I did a bunch of specs related to notifications and how they display and how they update the badges on the Me tab and on the app badge, and like how the data flows and does it cache, and does it like, how does that cache? Like, what happens if there's an error? Like all these questions. I have the LM basically ask me these questions as I'm going back and forth, figuring it out. I think you get to try to capture what your constraints are and your success criteria, and don't think of these things as like intelligences, because they're not. It's just a tool. And if you're a beginner, you don't have to like replace your entire workflow. You could just mostly do things the way you're doing now. But when you want to try this, you could just do it off to the side. It doesn't break anything. Like Xcode is still there. I'm still using it. That's how I'm checking the code. That's how I'm building stuff. You don't have to automate everything from zero. And then the interact part is when you're going back and forth with it. And I usually ask it to basically say, like, what questions need to be addressed? What decisions still need to be made? And so sometimes that's like a long thing. I mean, if it's a big enough feature, it kind of leads you sometimes to understand that maybe you're biting off too much. Maybe you need to make it more narrow. Maybe you need to split it up into multiple, things you're implementing. But you go back and forth, and it's been really useful. You'd say that you'd have the LM ask clarifying questions, and it'll like ask obvious things, because it'll be scanning your specs, it'll be scanning, your code in places that you point it to, and it'll ask like obvious questions, like what should I do here, or like it'll probably ask in the demo. A lot of times when I run the demo, it'll ask what the default state should be. Sometimes it assumes what the default state should be for the group. Should it just remain open, or should it be closed? And might ask, should you persist this? Sometimes it'll come up with a question like, should I persist the shown or hidden state of the disclosure group between runs? Like, it'll ask that question as part of my process here. Oh, the great thing about this is when you come back and revisit the same areas of your app, you already have this specification and these existing implementation plans to a lesser degree, and you have the specification, and the app will just the LLM will update the specs. So if it's not like a new spec, if it's part of the same thing, you're just modifying it, it'll just update it. So it becomes a living document. It's much easier to keep updated than like a traditional wiki or something, because it has a lot more technical specifications in there, because imagine how tedious it is to write that stuff down and like write down the function signatures of things and write down the names of views and like put that all into a markdown file. Well, the LLM just does that for you. Takes all that off your plate so you can actually get documentation, which is another benefit, I think, of this. So you've created an idea, you know what you're doing, you've worked on your spec, and so then you're gonna work on it, on implementing it kind of in an incremental way. You're gonna create that phase plan. You're going to run it, and then while you're doing this, you're probably going to sometimes have to like interrupt it and steer it and say, what are you doing? I don't want you to do that. Or you'll get through some phase, I'll ask you to check something, you'll say, this doesn't quite work right, or I changed my mind, I don't like that color, or the spacing's off, or whatever. And so you kind of just go back and forth with it during this point when you're implementing it. Sometimes you'll just change stuff on your own in Xcode if you want, if that's faster. But the more you give the LM to do, like it'll keep track of the whole history of what you're doing, and I find that it works better. Sometimes it gets confused if you change files out from under it. But so you just do this, you increment it. So you run it, you run your tests, you do your manual verification, whatever, and then when you're done, you want to, as I said, archive everything, cross-link all the files. This is another thing the LMs are great at doing. That's part of my rules. I say that specs need to be linked to implementation files and vice versa. And then also a thing I started doing is at the end of a session, when everything's checked in and it's working, I say, okay, based on what we did today, is there anything you think we can improve about the workflow? And it'll come back with like suggestions. And I'll say like, are there any skills you think we should create? Which is another topic we're not going to get into today. But it'll give me suggestions. And I'll say, okay, I like that one. I did that literally the other day. And I made an improvement to my agents file, and we'll talk about this in a minute, and to the other steering documents. So the iteration is not just in your coding, but it's also in the workflow itself. You can slowly adapt it to the way you want to work. You can add more automation if you want. You can work more traditionally if you want. It's not an all or nothing thing. It's not taking over your development practices. It's, especially if you're like me and you're like one guy, working on it, and you don't, it may be different if you're at a giant company, but I think that this is the way to approach this stuff. One step at a time, baby steps, and then you can go to Gas Town later. Kotaro knows what that is. So nitty-gritty stuff we'll go through real quick. How do you do this? The main thing you need to do, you set up an agents file or a Claude MD file. That's your primary steering document. It's always loaded by default with these tools when you start up a session, and it's how you bootstrap stuff. But what I want to do is I want to make sure I'm not loading all of my specs into the context. So what I do is I tell it to load a specs README file. And so I link that from the agents file. And I say, just load this, but don't load the actual specs linked from that README file. Use it as an index to look up stuff. And this idea I got from Jeffrey Huntley in this really trippy video on, I think it's like on Ralph Loops from First Principles. I'm not going to get into Ralph Loops, but he has this really trippy video, and this is like how he, part of his process for having his tools automatically write code. And he has like this index just like this. And then I also have a README for plans, which just kind of explains the rules for setting up a plan and what to do when you archive them and stuff. It's very simple. And so I have a few examples. You can see here's an older version of the agents file. You know, has like the standard agent stuff in there, like your response, and then the specs README conventions are in there, like how to name the files, what tables you use, and you can write these in different ways. Standard Markdown, at least with Codex, it seems just I don't want to write standard Markdown off in paragraphs, and I like to put in lists because I think they render better when I preview them, but you know, you can do whatever you want. Then here's like the README for specs, literally just Markdown tables, spec code purpose. They're Markdown links to the spec file, to the area in the app, specifically I have it going to the Swift package, you know, module, because it's all a bunch of modules in the same folder. You know, what is that called? The local packages, and then I have like a description that has like, you know, keywords in there so that hopefully the LM will pick up on this is the thing I need to load when I'm asking for like a dashboard or something. It'll look for things that have the word dashboard. And then finally, the plans one is the one that has the least amount of stuff in it. Honestly, you know, keep phases small and incremental. I call out cost crediting. So I've added to this since I took a screenshot, but you know, I have it note other things in here. And this is just all stuff that also is, a lot of this is mostly useful after the fact if you want to review what happened, but during the fact it can be helpful because it also points out to the LM things you need to know. It needs to know. So the whole the whole point of doing all this upfront work is so that your context isn't like all polluted with random stuff. And so that if you, for instance, if I end a session, I can come back and resume that session, but maybe I need to make a whole brand new session. Maybe because it was like you know, too much context was full or something. I still have a really good shot at getting the implementation to work because I've already documented all this stuff in a way that's outside the context window. And then if I wanted to move this to the next stage where I'm doing more like automatic agentic coding, then this is also a good stepping stone, I think, towards that, because then I'm already in the process of like breaking down tasks into like phased sets of to-do lists. And then I think pretty clearly have a path to move forward to break things down for like, you know, Ralph loops or something if I want to experiment with it. And so that's basically it. I have a few tips that your system is going to evolve, so just treat it as an experiment. Start with the simplest workflow that keeps you productive. This maybe is controversial, but maybe not. I think you should avoid wholesale adoption of other people's steering docs. There's examples out there of skills and agents files for like how to make Swift UI, you know, code come out right. And that could be really useful. And there's definitely times to adopt it. And I definitely would, like if you're starting new and you just want to adopt someone's style or that'll help. But I just think at first you should do this stuff by hand to build an intuition to how this stuff all fits together and works. And then you can just, you know, copy that stuff in, because honestly, it's mostly just markdown files you just put in the right place. And then obviously I think you should add process when it measurably improves outcomes, however you mean by measure. I mean, you can be really specific about it or just kind of go by feel. I've been adding, a most recent thing I did was just make a change to the metadata and all the plans and the specs so that there was a little bit more structure. Not a lot. I didn't go full on front matter like in a Hugo template yet. I just have it making a list at the top in the same place in each file that has the same few bits of information. And I figured that out after the session with the LLM, and I said, "Is there anything we should do to improve this?" And then it said, "Well, maybe we should make so I did that, and we'll see if it helps, if it further improves things. But it certainly makes it easier for me to read them and see what when did this thing get done, for instance, and and links to other things all in the one place. So then this will be the part where I would do a demo, but we're not going to do a demo on the podcast because honestly, I hope that your closing speech will be short, because I may need extra time, because every time I run this demo, it is a different amount of time it takes. And if the Wi-Fi doesn't work, we're not running the demo at all. So we will see. We will see.
My closing speech? Right, because, who knows?
Because I'm last.
What is the average? What was the last, when you tested the demo, how long do you think it took?
It was like at least 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
It was like a 10-minute thing, because it depends on... It just depends on codecs.
Does that include your interactions, or is that all automated?
No, this is me going from let's make a spec and forward.
That includes the back and forth and you answering the questions.
Yeah, but it's always a little different each time I do it.
Right.
But here's the thing that will make it it makes it a little bit faster. Is that hopefully this works? I'm not typing. It's like I spent the whole day today not typing, talking to the codecs, because I use a little program called Handy Computer, and I don't know these guys, but I saw Scott Hanselman did a video where he was using this, and it uses a local model to do the voice to text, and it works really well, and I've been using that. So I have it just set up for I push a button on my keyboard, and I just hold it down and I talk, and I let it go, and any text box it'll just put my text in there, and that's great for an LLM because it's a lot faster than typing it. So I shaved like a couple minutes or a minute or something off of it, just off the talk, just doing that.
That should be funny.
Yeah, we'll see if it works with all the recording and stuff. It did work on a Teams call I did it earlier today. So
I think it'll be interesting to see, if you pull off at least the first part of this presentation for 10 minutes.
The slides? I can definitely.
Yeah, just the slides, and then you can make the other half, the other 10 minutes of allocation, just for Q&A while you wait for the thing to go.
Yeah,
you can leave it in
that's
the
what's going
background.
to have to do. Yeah, we have to do that. Or that's what we did, I should say. Well,
that's what we did.
We did see. You know what I mean?
What is time?
What is time?
You're not going to just
how do they work?
Run both of them in parallel?
What?
You're not just going to try to do the slides and run the agent in parallel?
Oh, that would be hilarious. Actually, that would be kind of funny. It's let me start this thing, and then
probably
while
a terrible
we're starting
idea.
this thing,
I mean,
I'm going to talk about this thing.
That is a good idea, and the problem with it is that it's probably too much to juggle, and I'm also trying to keep it very beginner friendly. So there's a reason why it's all serial too, because I'm not getting into multiple agents doing things in parallel, which some people are really gung ho about. You can have a planner and an implementer and a reviewer and whatever, and you have a little squad of these things. I'm just doing this is just your guy. I just want to see if this works for me. I'm just going to do things one step at a time, serial manner, and it still can be, if not a huge productivity boost, because I can't say it's actually faster all the time, because you're also often hurrying up and waiting, but it definitely has these side effects for me that I like, where I'm having all this great documentation that I can share with the other developer that needs to be coordinated with me. It makes it really easy for me here's the logic I use to handle when badging happens for these 3 different feeds in these different scenarios. I literally had the LLM write it out and write a state diagram. It was here it is. Here and here's how I'm doing analytics logging, and here's the example code, and I translated it to Kotlin for the guy because he's Android. So it's I did all that in one document. I just gave it to him. I was here you go. Here's exactly what I'm doing. Here's examples of how it might work on your end if you want to follow the same exact structure that I'm doing.
And here's my project that I did in Android for you.
That far? I'm not going to go that far. That's a little much. But
joking.
I don't know. What do you think about this? Kotaro, this. I think this it works. It does work. This process.
All I can say is I'm amazed at this presentation. It went so well. It was stunning. People cheered. Some people cried. I never seen developers cry the way they did.
The AI bros heckled me and told me that their gas town would just make 15 apps while I was doing the one.
I mean, sure, but I don't know what college kids has $20,000 stashed away to do this kind of work.
At least you got to have multiple Claude Max accounts. Like you got to have like at least $400, $600 of Max accounts, I think, per month.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. But I mean, have you guys, I know we're like getting close to our time here, but like, have you guys done much of this stuff yet?
Yeah. I've been doing that kind of stuff for quite a bit now.
Do you, where does this fall in the category of like your experience? Are you?
Yeah. It's like, this kind of whatever spec plan execute thing works really well. And breaking it down to these like tiny little things that'll fit in the context window. And then you throw it out or throw out that conversation and you start a new thing after you've made a commit. So it's like you try to do too much in one context window and it all falls apart.
I will say that I haven't used Claude Opus model too much for this thing, but the GPT 5.2 codex does a really good job with a really long context window. Like I've gone all the way up to it, like 50% of my context is full, and it's that's fine.
About You want to watch when you get to like 60 or 75%.
Yeah, I've been pushing it to see how well it works, and so far it's been fine. Like I just keep pushing it to see how far it'll go because it's nice to not have to change it up. But
that's where all the automation stuff comes in.
Yeah, so the tooling, like the CLI tools, are all adding. If they didn't already have planning modes, like Codex has an experimental planning mode. It works a little differently. But the thing about a lot of them is they're not saving the plans like by default into a file.
That's the most important thing.
That's the most important thing. If you get nothing else out of this, it's just do software engineering. Think about what you're trying to accomplish. Plan what you're going to do. I don't mean like waterfall the whole thing, but like plan the piece you're trying to do and break it down into pieces and then save that decision making in a file. And then it's good for you, and then it's good for the LLM because it doesn't have to be, it's not all in one giant session. I think a lot of people I see online use these, and they're like, I got confused, and it ran out of my session went too long. And it's like, okay, but like, why are you trying to do everything in one context window in one session? You're just biting off too much for the machine. It's a tool, man. You have to understand its limitations and work with them.
You got to think that they want to have that claim of, I got this app done in one day. It would have taken me like 3 months or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, everybody's doing this. The more advanced techniques are like, the Ralph loops and gas towns and other mechanisms that break things down and have maybe even multiple agents or just have them like work all more autonomously. Like I'm not doing that right now. And that's because it's too much to get started with. You got to start small.
Yep.
I think. Yep. Do it like this. This is like the slow way. And then you can say, oh, I understand how this works now. And now I can adapt it to more automated. So, Aaron, have you been doing like the automatic,
No, because the tools we have we're not allowed to use those. Like we pretty much have to like approve everything that the model does. So we can't like just like run these things and let them, because like all of these things are like configured by our like IT department of like what features are turned on and what.
It's the same thing.
So,
like I have access to the CLI tool, but it's not like we don't have. It's not autonomously doing things.
Like the turbo mode or whatever it is that just like full YOLO is not allowed. It's turned off.
I have not turned on the full YOLO mode. I find that Codex is pretty good at working well enough, and then when it has to do a privilege escalation, like if it's in a Git repo. It's pretty free to do stuff, and then it'll ask you occasionally for stuff, and then you just hit enter, and it'll show you exactly what the command is, and you say okay, and you do that. You can run it in YOLO mode, but I haven't done that yet because
when we talk about YOLO mode, how YOLO are we talking about here?
Like delete your hard drive.
Are we talking about like bot YOLO mode?
Yeah, I don't know. There's like I've tried the full auto flag, which is not quite YOLO, I think, on Codex, because it's in a Git repo. It still asks me to do stuff. Like network requests would often ask me to do stuff. Like it's sandboxed. Like it is. I think the YOLO mode basically lets it break the sandbox however it wants.
Because like even like when with the restricted stuff that I'm doing, it's like if you let it make too many changes to one file, and it's like I corrupted the file. Sorry. It's like if you didn't commit that before, it's like
I've not seen that happen.
Yeah. I haven't seen that happen in a while, but it does happen.
So what tooling do you use? Do you use like one of CLI tools, like a GitHub Copilot or CLI or something?
Yeah, and we're also testing Windsurf.
Oh yeah, Windsurf. That'd be cool. Yeah. I only have access to this, so this is what I use, and I've also used OpenCode, and it's been a while since I used Cursor, and I never used Windsurf. I just gave my $20 to Anthropic so I can try Claude Code because they lock down access to every other tool. So I might as well. I'll try Claude Code.
That's the gateway drug, man.
Well, it's interesting the thing of like the when you use the tool from the
vendor
that's from the same company as the model of like because they've been trained to work together.
Well. I gotta say, I really like Codex though. Like,
yeah, well,
the model itself, it's
just the same thing where it's like it's made by OpenAI, and when you use it or with their models, right? Then
and it seems like a lot of people like Codex in the iOS world because what's different about it, and I don't have as much experience with the Opus model, but it only does what you tell it to. It just does, and that's why I think it works really well with the planning, mechanism. But I guess if you want to talk more about this, we're gonna have to wrap this up. So come and join the Philly Coca Slack, I guess.
Yeah,
we can discuss
Philly Coca Slack, side project Saturdays, and all that. But that's all we have for today. You can learn more about Philly Cocoa at phillycocoa.org. There you'll find links to our Slack group, meetup schedule, and contact info. If you're feeling generous, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and whatever your podcast platform of choice is. And please share us with all your developer friends. And one more thing. Actually, there is not one more thing, but I'm going to make one more thing happen in the sense that we're going to go back to, at least for now, even though we did a IRL, think of it like a test run for like future events, but we're going to go back to our monthly meeting schedule for Zoom calls in February. If you have a talk or a show and tell that you would like to do, or you would like to even see a live demo of something, liquid glass or other things,
nice.
Come by, and definitely if you have something to show, let us see it.
Where can they find info about the event?
You can find the info. We're going to try a little. We normally have our meetup schedule in meetup.com, so you can find us there. But we want to migrate over to luma.com. So if you look up Philly Cocoa in Luma, registration's easy and straightforward. It destroys Meetup in a lot of ways, and
yeah, I like it.
It's very organizer friendly, so we would prefer you register for our monthly meetings there if you can.
Yeah, but we're gonna keep Meetup running for at least a little while longer.
Yep.
But
so we're having
it's maybe deprecated.
Yes, it's definitely deprecated. So till next time, good luck on your own developer journey. We will cheer for you always.
Every additional one was like another nail in your coffin.